So this is the Roland JD800, and this one, like most of them, has a problem with the keybed. These traditionally have this problem. There's a lot of reports of the keybeds being bad, and for a while Roland agreed to replace the keybed for free because they knew it was a manufacturer default. But eventually they stopped doing that because this is old. This is these came out I think in 1991 and lasted for till 96. This keybed is found only in the JD800 along with the D70 and the U20. Other than that, I think there's one other keyboard in there. There are traditionally two problems with this synth, with this keybed. One of them is what is commonly known as the red glue of death. The red glue of death, when they manufactured the keys, like all Roland keys, in order to make them semi-weighted, they glued weights to the bottom of the key to give it that semi-weighted feel. But what ended up happening is they used a different type of glue, and the glue was a red glue that would eventually, over the years, melt and come off and drip down into the keybed, into the electronics and components, and it was just ugly. This keyboard did not come with that problem. This had the other problem, which is the bad ribbon connection. Underneath the keybed, there is a long green ribbon. So this green ribbon is what you'll find underneath this keybed. It sits like this. So here are the contacts underneath the keys. They'll make contact with these connectors, which then send the messages all along to this connection, and then wrap around. This is a separate piece from this, and this is where the problem occurred. Again, this is a modification. Somebody attempted to fix this in the past, and doesn't look like they were successful, because I bought this whole keyboard thinking I could just pop this one in and replace the bad one that I had, that one there, and it was going to fix it. But turns out this one was even worse as far as any of the keys working. So enough talking, let's go ahead and start taking this thing apart. So you have to get this thing open by turning it over, and the very front of the synth in this image I have towards the top of the frame. There are a total of 16 screws to take off, 3 on each side. There are 8 in the back along the hinge side, and then there are 2 that are kind of in the middle horizontally. They're kind of hard to find. They're about, I would say, about a third of the way in, right in the middle of this bottom of the synth. I'll circle them here. Hopefully this image can help you locate those screws. So now here the synthesizer is opened up, and you can see I've already removed the keys. I did that earlier. Here's the green ribbon with the rubber contacts showing that triggered the keys. And here on the end cap you can see the proper seam with the plastic, clear plastic covering. So if you're going to try to keep the rubber contacts, you want to be a little bit more delicate than I'm being here. I bought some new ones from Roland, so I didn't have a problem taking them off a bit forcefully, as you see. They survived even that, though. They did an okay job, but you want to be a little bit more delicate if you're going to try to salvage the rubber contacts. The seam is where I'm going to be focusing my attention, because the clear plastic seam is where the 2 ribbons meet, the big green ribbon and the elbow ribbon, and that is where the problems happen with this. Now we're going to unscrew the keybed frame from the chassis, so you'll need to turn it back over, and you'll need to unscrew these 5 screws, and now turn it right side up and remove these 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now it's easy as just taking out the frame and then removing this ribbon from the main circuit board. And now you can see a closer look here of the connector board and the elbow ribbon that needs to just come off. So just by pulling these out, they just pull right out, is what does the aftertouch. The challenge is going to be these parts here, which are the back side of the of what holds the ribbon down, which is these 2 plastic, they're kind of rivets, if you will. So if you look very closely at them, it looks like the inner portion is pushed in to spread out the little spreaders that lock it into place. I'm going to attempt to push in on this centerpiece and see if I can push it through. Oh, it's just that easy. I mean, it really comes out easy. Just like that. Well, that's great. So just by pinching those guys, I pinched that one and pushed it through, pinched that one and pushed it through, and now I have, turn it over, I have a two-piece setup. There's kind of a sheath that it goes into and spreads apart when you push this pin through. So let's take a look. Here's the old school one up top, and you can see what the problem was right off the bat. These contacts were supposed to make a connection here, and then in the process send the information from the keys around to the brain. The new one, as you can see, is just one continuous piece. It comes up and around, and you're done with it. So now we just put the plastic rivets back on by pushing them through the hole. It's pretty simple. And so now turning it over, we'll look at the aftertouch, which goes in at an angle, which is weird. Just slides in there. It's a weird design. Oh, it's reverse. Oh no. So that's an issue. The whole thing is flipped. This thing needs to be redone. I've seen something online where somebody did this, where he took this whole board and flipped it upside down. And so sure enough, I went online and I discovered that there is a website called Gearslutz.com. I'm sure you all have heard of it, but if you haven't, go check it out. Gearslutz.com. And there was a thread titled JD800 Keyboard Replacement and Parts. And in that thread, there was a contributor by the name of Goa Travellers. GOA Travelers. And this person created some detailed instructions on how to modify this board, including step-by-step photographs, including very specific directions on how to make the modification for this board to accept the new ribbon. So this is my attempt now at trying to follow those instructions, and I hope to get it right. All right, so I'm going to take this board, as I said, I'm going to take this out and flip it around. And I'm also going to take this little, this is the where the aftertouch ribbon goes, and I'm going to take it and put it over here into these pins. And when it comes to these, where these pins go, in flipping it around, everything's going to move over one. So here goes a complete novice. I'm going to use a solder sucker, brand new solder sucker. Hopefully I won't mess this up. Too bad, actually. Comes right out. Look at that. Let's try these other ones. Oops, a little bit of a crack there. Which one is it? And as you can see, it took a little bit of wiggling as well as further attempts with the solder sucker to get this thing out, but finally here it is. Let's see if it goes just as smoothly when I have to go putting it back in the opposite way around. And as you can see here, it's my first bit of successful soldering. I've put the connector to the aftertouch ribbon. The connector is now correctly connected to the connector board. And with the aftertouch connector being on the other side of the board now, it's going to make more sense why we have to move the ribbon connector over to the left by one, as you'll see here. So now that we've moved the connector over to the left, as you can see, to the 2 pins on the far left, you will notice that the lead leads around to the new connection where the aftertouch ribbon connects to the connector board. Those 2 points come around to these 2 points. Now comes the more difficult task of trying to solder these 26 points successfully without any of the solder joints touching each other. So wish me luck. And here is the first row done. Pretty painless, not too difficult. And here's the second row done. Let's hope it works. All right, so just to review, I've moved everything over. You see there's 2 opening holes there, and the board is now, the slots are now facing inward as opposed to it used to face outward. And this, which used to be over here, has now been moved over to here, facing out that way. So once again, everything has been shifted that way so that these 2 feeds can reach around to here. Hopefully none of these solder points actually are touching each other. I did a little circuit testing to see if they were, and they didn't. They seem to be okay. So fingers crossed, hopefully this works. The board now will sit on the undercarriage of this upside down. So what I will have to do is to remove this bracket so that I can put the board on the other side of this. So now with that done, just like that, what I'll do is I'll take these 2 screws out and I'll screw it from the other side. Going that way, the board will go in upside down. So since the board's going to go this way to get in on the ribbon there, the ribbon's going to attach there, the other 2 pieces will attach there. That means this thing has to sit upside down like this, or like that. So now I can screw it in like that. And now I'll flip it around and mount it back on the board. Right there. See this here. And now the ribbon that goes to the keyboard, that connects the keyboard to the circuitry will go blue side. How do I say it need to go blue side up? Let's find out. Alright, so as in the instructions, the blue part goes down. So that goes like that. Spin around like that. Blue side down like this. And this would be what hopefully will work. In the process of putting the keyboard back together, you want to make sure that each of these metal plates, these little metal sticks, are in place and that they go and they slide in that way. And they stay that way when you go to put the key on. In this case, I'm going to start with the, the E flat, because it goes in before. And you have to be careful that this part here doesn't come up over, this little bit here doesn't pop over onto the ribbon. Pushing down underneath, there's a little tiny metal lip that you can't see from the camera's angle, but that pushes that down. And then when you put the key on, again, it popped up. You can see it pretty clearly there. It's staying underneath the ribbon. It stayed underneath the ribbon here. And that's how it flexes. Obviously you want to put your sharp keys in, your sharp or flat keys in before you put your major keys in. Otherwise you end up having to take it all out again. Another thing I've learned is don't try to be clever and line all of these metal bits up first. Do a couple at a time according to the keys that you're going to be putting in. So for example, I'm going to be putting in a sharp key here and then the B key next. But if I'd put a bunch of them here, you just end up bumping into them and they all fall down through the cracks, and then you got to get them out. Sadly, I learned that from experience, but anyway, something I've learned. One more thing too, these are new contacts that go on top of the new ribbon, and I did actually put the new aftertouch stick. It had adhesive on the back side, so that just stuck on there. And I tested it before I put the keys on. I did test it by plugging it in, turning it on, and then touching each side of these guys here, where you've got, you know, soft and hard, and any combination in between makes the velocity. And it all worked. Each key worked. So I'm very pleased to say that my first attempt at soldering was successful, and I haven't soldered anything in probably over 20 years. So this has been a good test for me. A bit risky, but it was worth it. And I will report back to you once I've got every key in place and we give it a full-blown test, and I'll let you hear it back in a bit. That's what I call a success. After putting this all together and playing the synth, I did realize there's a second problem with it that I'm not going to get into, and that is that the bender modulation knob puts everything out of tune. So try another sound. You can hear it's a problem. So I'll get into that and I will fix that at a later date. But for now, the keys actually work and it sounds great. And I'm looking forward to playing this JD800. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful and informative. I'll do some more if I can, and I will eventually be doing a review of the JD800 as a synthesizer itself, along with other reviews of other synthesizers. Anyway, thanks for watching.